Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews, Year 4. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story. I'm the president of Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training. My special guest today is Victor Osumi, who is the managing director and president of Delta Airlines here in Japan.
Thank you.
Victor, thank you. I know you're a very busy man, and because of the industry, and you're traveling all the time, so it's been great to have a chance to talk
Thank
with
you.
today.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank
So,
you,
Victor, give us a little bit of the backstory on how it is that you're running Delta here in Japan. How did that come about?
Sure. It's interestingly, I always have my, passions and my love to the aviation. As a matter of fact, my background always goes back to when I was in high school. I fell in love with aviations and airlines. And as a matter of fact, my degree in college with the aviation management of flight technology. So basically,
aviation management of flight technology.
Obviously,
that is a very specific area of study.
It is. And obviously, I was based out of Florida. I went to a university called Florida Tech, Florida Institute of Technology. But getting there, it's been a long journey already because my father is more of course, they're Japanese and they're expat Japanese into U.S. And that's why I was born in LA, and I came back when I was really little. And I spent my years here in Japan till like elementary school to mid, and I moved back with my father's second assignment back to U.S. That was age of 14, 15.
Oh, okay. That's a very important period in your life as a young man.
Yeah.
Teenager years, right.
And of course, I had a choice. My father is a great father, gave me a choice of either staying in U.S. and coming back to Japan, work for him, for his company. But my eager is always, again, to fly. And some thought of movies that I watch. Obviously, it's a very famous movie called Top Gun, and obviously, it's really hooked me into to the flying and military. So I went to Florida Institute of Technology Aviation Management again, and I got my private commercial license as well as CFI, which is Certified Flight Instructor license.
Oh, okay.
And on my senior year, they have a program. College have a program. It's more like OJT training that I be a flight instructor, and I get to teach like a freshman of the college. So I built my hours, and then I joined the U.S. Air Force. I got my U.S. citizen as I was born in the U.S. And then I spent almost 6 years in U.S. Air Force until I got a little bit, you can tell I still have this little asthma thing that I'm taking medicine, but I decided to get out of flying. And I just went to nothing intelligent about it, but I went to I became an intelligent officer for U.S. Air Force. And,
okay.
And then I thought, well, maybe I should try something else. I got opportunity to take the early out, so I got out of Air Force, hoping that maybe I work for the airline. But my age, getting closer to 60 now, is as we're growing up as a pilot, there's a lot of Vietnam veterans. He still flies as a co-pilot. Pilots, mainly the captain, and obviously the young one like me didn't have much of a chance. So I said, well, in the meantime, while airline gave me a call, I decided to work for the hotel company. So I joined a hotel company using my benefit and ability of speaking Japanese, writing Japanese. Then I joined a hotel company called Hyatt.
Here?
No, in actually Hawaii. I got out of service in Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii, okay.
So I worked at Hyatt Regency Waikiki as an intern, management intern, and thereafter I just got hooked into this hotel business. So I thought I was going to be flying, but then I'll be running hotel business. And I thought it's going to be 5-6 years, but I was in hotel business for 27 years. So before I joined Delta, I came to Japan as the same job, Marriott, area vice president for Marriott, Japan and Guam. And basically my responsibility is owner relationship. Not too many people know, of course, Marriott does own few hotels, but most of the hotel in the world is owned by separate owner, investors. And obviously, it starts with bidding to this property and then to build a hotel. And obviously, I'm in a process with the hotel business where I bid to the owner go from Marriott or Hilton's, and then I I really enjoy being in a human relationship with personal relationship with the owners. And my early years in operation, there's a lot of Japanese investors came to U.S., Hawaii, L.A., some of those famous places, for popular places for Japan. And then again, using my ability of speaking both languages really made my life successful. So I again thank my father for doing that. When you're young, right, you grew up in U.S. Why the hell do I need to go to school on Saturday to learn about Japan? But later we talk about this. But really, how I would know if I know I'm successful or not successful, but I'd be able to do the business because the father gave me this opportunity to know about the biculture. Both culture is very important, very different, as you know.
Very lucky too, I think.
Yeah, very lucky too.
Very lucky, yeah. Well, your father was very wise, I think, and had a lot of foresight to give you the opportunity to have bicultural, language abilities. And I'm just wondering, coming out of a military background into a management job in the commercial sector, in this case the hotel, was that a bit of a transition? Because often, the military methodology is for war, predominantly. So people have to do what they're told and do it now. But as you say, the human relations element, you've got to actually get people to want to do it.
Yep.
And that's a totally different communication piece. So did you find much of a transition of having to switch gears a little bit from a military mode into a sort of, international hotel property mode?
Well, thank you, Greg. It's a great point because, be honest with you, though I'm living in U.S., I grew up in Japanese culture. Mm-hmm. So it was first, more than anything else, it was a good opportunity for me to learn about the United States. I mean, it's starting from national anthem to swearing and everything else. So that really gave me an opportunity to learning about the culture of the U.S. I thought I know, which is I didn't. And I joined military, to your point. Yes, it was like very similar to Japan, top down. It was order rather than ask you to do. So I didn't feel awkward to join military because a lot of people, my friends at the military school at that time, they're a little bit hard time adapting it because they grew up in a culture of independency, right? Rather than dependency. In Japan, I think culturally, even my son today, he's 28, 29, getting ready to be 30, but still with us, not married. So I always tell him to get out. But, they still have a little bit of a dependency, though he's a financially independent. But so that said, yes, military business is very interesting to me and give me, but I think they give me a good picture of what the leadership needs to be in U.S., which I always saw my father as I growing up, shadowing him. Every time he comes to Japan, he asked me to speak right in front of his employee, thousands of employees, just let me speak and be used to the public speaker. So that's also helped me now, but definitely, yes, the military business gave me two different bicultural picture of totally different world. But at the end, military is more like in Japanese side, which the leadership it's kind of like top down, rather than let's think together and towards a goal. It's always goals there. I run marathon, but it's just like goals there. It just how to get there, and always directions come from my senior officers. So to your point, yes, I think it's very similar to Japan.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. So you made the transition from the hospitality industry and hotels into an airline. There's some crossover there, but they're also completely different industries. So when you, as an area manager looking after a number of hotels, I guess, across Guam and Japan, you come from that position into running a single operation. I know Delta's got multiple centers throughout Asia, but you're now running the organization in Japan. Were there any particular things you found challenging in making that jump from hotel to airline industry? Because for me, to be honest, I would never want to get into the airline industry because some volcano goes off in the South Pacific, and you can't fly.
Of course.
Or a pandemic breaks out and you can't fly.
Right.
Or we have a war in Ukraine and you got to 16 hours to London from Japan, instead of 12. And I mean, there's so many things out of your control in that business. It just, for me, it's like, oh my God, business is hard enough as it is.
Sure.
And then you get out on top of that, all these other factors which you have no control over.
Of course.
Kudos to you for taking it on. But I'm just interested, was there a transition, or was it things that you thought, okay, I'm been leading a team in Japan already through the hotel business, and now I'm leading a different industry. Was there a transition or a challenge, or are there any differences you found?
Of course, I think challenge is that one, yes, hotel to airline business, but another one from hotel business to Delta. I think it's two different ways of explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
First, I'm explaining to you first on hotel to airline business. Now, like I said, each hotel has an owner, and their expectation and their focus is only this hotel. And obviously, differences, hotel, once you build it, you can move it. Versus airline, it's more like not challenges, but also opportunity, more to convince internally than externally. Let me explore a little bit on that. In hotel business, you have to kind of convince the owner, okay, this is how it goes the rest of the year. But of course, at the end of the day, the airline does have an investor too. But we as a regional owner of the business have to explain why we need to fly from here to LA. Why do we need to move from Narita to Haneda? And as you know, we moved a full operation in 2019, right before COVID, which was unfortunate. But we cleaned up everything in Narita and we moved to Haneda. So all the 7 flights are now flying out of Haneda. But even after COVID, anytime we try to get more flights out of Haneda, we have to explain to the headquarters why it makes sense to start up this flight now. Again, difference is hotel, once you build it, you have to make the business case. Airline, if you convince it and they say, no, it doesn't work out, they can pull the plane out tomorrow. Sorry, it's not working out, Victor. Let's move this plane to somewhere else. So both have different challenges and different difficulty because with the hotel business, I went through from 9/11 to obviously I got out of service and went to hotel business right before 9/11. So 9/11 happens. And then obviously that happens. We have like Lehman shock, and then we have like earthquake here in Japan. So there is a lot of natural disaster or something happened in Japan, which could impact Japan. But hotel business, you can't move this building because it's built. So you always have to have a mindset of emergency cases. If that happens, if this happens, how are we going to deal with it? And
it's been tough though. I mean, I remember
it is tough.
Before COVID, our office was right across the road from the Zennika Hotel.
Of course.
ANA. And sometimes I'd have breakfast there, it'd be packed, buzzing. There's lots of foreign tourists. It's really humming. And then it was like gutter, like you could fire a cannon down the hallway and wouldn't hit anybody because there's nobody there, And the, GM goes from looking like a genius with 97% occupancy or something, and they get down like 30% occupancy. It's just horrible, So as you say, you can't do much about that. But in terms of leading the people, again, it's a people industry. I mean, you've got operations in a hotel and you've got operations in an airline. And the difference with an airline is the safety factor is massively important in an airline. So again, there's a different mentality about service to customers. But did you find any difference going into, and you also talked about industry and then also Delta itself.
Right.
Any major difference in going from the sort of Marriott group to Delta, going from how to lead people in a hotel to how to lead people in an airline?
For example, Marriott, hotel business in case here in Japan is growing so fast. And the people shortage, even as of today, it's still facing it. I talked to my successor at the Marriott, but he's still having a hard time getting people. But in other words, every time there is a freshening up, for example, if new hotel build, we pull this person who's next to the promotion to GM, we move these people. So it's always the people on move. That is great opportunity for the people coming up now. Sometimes that could be an issue because, we're building hotel after another. We have to promote somebody with less experience, and owner may like it. So there is a challenge along with it. But looking at take care of the people, it's more opportunity to grow as long as the hotel company is growing. To your point earlier, airline itself, and I felt a totally different culture from Marriott to Delta. Principle same. Take care of the employee, then employee will take care of you, and then take care of the customer, and customer like the company, and customer will come back, and then investor will invest more. So the cycle is the same. The difference is the people, obviously. We have greatly appreciated, but we have more than half of the people been Delta for almost 30 years.
Wow,
because
half of 30-year veterans. That's
yeah,
incredible.
because what happened is, as people may know already, Delta is a history here in Japan. Started up in 75 years ago with Northwest Airline. And Northwest Airline, not too many people know, and I'm learning this as I'm going too, but came to Japan to train Japanese airline pilots. So if you look up from first step, the first Northwest people came in was 75 years ago, which we celebrated last year. So this is 76th year. So there's a lot of history in Japan. Also, there's a people who love the company with the company we're here. So one thing I surprised to see is that, of course, in good way, in many ways as well, but we have such a veterans here versus I always have to deal with the new people in the hotels business. Here, we have a lot of veterans. It's great because they have a lot of knowledge in the airline business. But at the same time, I have challenges and also opportunity to change the mindset.
I was going to say, the 30 years is good on one hand, and if you want to change, sometimes that can be a difficulty if people are very stuck in their ways and not open to change. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about anytime you come into a new organization, in your case, a new industry, you have directive from headquarters on what they expect, and then you have your own accumulated experience, and you have your own aspirations, and you have your own goals for the business and what you think you can bring to the business. So you're probably going to set some direction for the company, and then the job is get everyone behind that, because there's a famous American baseball coach called Yogi Berra, who actually used to completely murder the English language. But he did say something I thought was quite smart. He said, leading is easy. Getting people to follow you is hard. And that is, in the essence, quite true. Leading is easy, but getting people to follow you is the difference. And so how did you approach getting people engaged to follow you? Because you haven't been in the business for 30 years. They have. So they look at you and they go, okay, Victor, okay, good. You're in the hotel business. Good. We're in the airline business for 30 years, by the way, buddy. And we know a lot about this. And you've got some interesting ideas, but actually not that interesting to us. So how did you find a means to engage them, to get behind what you wanted to do?
Sure. I think it's a great point, Greg-san. That goes to where I think I'm very fortunate because every time I change the job, even within a hotel company, I was asked to change the environment, change the system. Before Marriott, of course, I did Marriott twice, but before Marriott, I was with a company called IHG ANA, which you mentioned about the ANA Hotel. It's now the joint venture between InterContinental Hotel Group and ANA. That was one of the timing where IHG had decided to manage ANA hotels, and then change the brand from ANA Hotel to say ANA InterContinental, ANA Holiday Inn, ANA, etc., etc. So every step of the time, I had the opportunity to, I have faced with the challenges to change the mindset of the people. For moving from hotel businesses, Marriott to Delta is no difference from others. I think my approach is say, okay, I don't know nothing. I know nothing. Just teach me how to do it. You run the business, and I just go along with your decision. You guys have to make a decision. And believe it or not, that is one of the toughest thing for me that they having a hard time, difficult time to making their own decision. Because
well, it's interesting too, because you look at your background, you're in the pilot training, flying, very independent activities. You're in the military. Again, you have to be accountable, responsible yourself. There'd be a lot of independence. And then you come in and you're saying you're really delegating a lot to, they're not newbies, they're veterans, so they know what they're doing. But still, you are delegating to them to guide. And also, that's one part of it, given your background, to actually be able to do that delegation is impressive. The other part of it is, in Japan, there is that hierarchical nature of things you talked about earlier, which says, okay, boss, tell me what to do. And by the way, you take accountability because it's your idea and I'll be safe, right? So as long as you're making the decision, I'm following it, I'm carrying out orders, I'm good. Don't ask me to think what I have to do and don't ask me to take accountability. Thank you very much. So you talk about mindset shift to go from, okay, I'm going to delegate to you and now you have to be accountable. You had to make a mindset shift yourself, and you're asking them to make a pretty big mindset shift. So tell us a bit more about how that worked.
I think, again, looking at my culture, something I didn't say is that once upon a time, I wanted to be owner side of the business. So with the hotel business, I went to work for one of the private equity company, U.S. New York-based private equity company. And this company purchased 36.5% of a company, and this A company has had 88 properties here in Japan, golf courses, ski resorts, and you can imagine which company that is, but this company is owned by railroad. And to your point, I mean, this company was exactly that. They were not, I would say they were not told to make decision. They were just told to do what they were instructed to do.
Execute.
So I said, oh my God, I had a secondment from a private equity company to this company as senior managing director. And first thing, I guess one of the challenges is like, hey guys, tell me what you think. They will look at me like, what do you mean by what I think?
Yeah.
So you can imagine that is my first experience. Like, yes, tell me what you think.
And that's interesting, because in Japan, if you ask Japanese people for their opinion, we're a training company, right? So often we're getting people to share experiences and ideas. And if we ask them, okay, Victor, give us your idea, they're horrified because their brain is going, who's older than me, who should be giving their opinion first? Who joined the company before me, who should be giving their opinion first? Who's got higher status than me should be giving their opinion first. And if I'm a woman, which of these men should give their opinion before I give mine? So there's a hell of a lot of calculating going on here before they speak, right? And so it's difficult to get people to, and then they worry about, beyond that, they worry about, what if my idea is crap?
Yeah.
And what if people think I'm an idiot?
Exactly.
Or what if people find out I'm an idiot, which is what they're really worried about? I don't want to give my idea because it's too risky, too dangerous. So thank you, Victor. No, thank you.
No, Greg, so it's so right, because I think it's either way. If my idea is stupid, oh my gosh, I might be tomorrow directing a parking lot. I'm a director of sales, but tomorrow I could be just directing the cars for parking lot. It could be a good idea, then you could get promoted. So you're right, there's a lot of risk by saying true things. And that is exactly the horrifying and the scares of the people. So my approach is no different from moving one company to another. I said, I know nothing, but my goal is here. So let's think together, how are we going to get there? Because you guys are professional. You guys have been in business for 30 years. You know more than I do. Just teach me how should we get there. So rather than I ask him, I learned this as I went through this Japanese company. If I ask with a no objection or objective, they will not come back to you. But I still learned that. I said, you know what? I wanted to get here and I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. How should we get there? Is this a good idea or a bad idea? And I think what I try to do is to get them engaged in process. I think a lot of time, with all respect, I think a lot of Japanese leader is a great leader, but they just, boom, drop the hallmark and they don't really guide you through there. I think you just...
Well, Japan's a lot of bottom up too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bottom
There's going to
up.
be a decision. There's not going to be one decision maker.
Of course.
In my company, there's one decision maker. That's me.
Yeah.
I decide everything. A small company. But in a Japanese company, there's going to be divisions, there's going to be sections.
Of course.
They've got to make a decision. Like, for example, if people are buying training, you might think, oh, we meet the shacho, we're going to get the deal because we met the shacho or the president. Not necessarily, because then it's got to go down to the relative sections, and somebody at the very bottom will do some due diligence, and then they'll work up a paper like the ringisho.
Yes.
And then they'll start harmonizing that with other divisions which will be impacted, and they'll put in their input. And it gradually works its way up to the sort of C-suite level, at which point they'll make a decision. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, variation has to happen to keep everyone happy.
Of course.
Someone might hold it for quite a long time because they're not happy and they're not going to agree.
Right.
So, getting someone to just give, okay, do this in a Japanese company is, unless it's a, one-man shacho owner, shacho, like me, dictator, he just tells people what to do. If it's not that type of company, it's very difficult to get any direction. And the shacho is not the one to give the direction. The shacho sort of sits back like Solomon and has the judgment at the end of, okay, we'll do it, because everyone's agreed, right? So it's always tricky in Japan, getting things decided.
Yes, it is tricky. But I think I had the great support from, even though that was a Japanese company, the president and CEO of this company was great support, because we need to change the culture, because anytime the CEO tells things, everybody's just not saying anything. So how I started is even like any kind of internal meeting, it's always a podium, and leaders always speak in podium. Here, it's already have a distance between, and for multinational company like us, or some of the members here in Japan, coming from US, it's natural to speak to the people, like walking around, face to face. But here in Japan, as you know, sometimes that could be a taboo where you get too close to employment. So at the first meeting, I still remember I did is I just come out of podium stage. I just start talking to everyone face to face, about 100 people there, all executives, and just start. People were just a little bit offended in a way, like, what is this guy doing? But
shacho should be on the podium, on the stage, right?
So
walking around.
I think as you're getting close to that, I think we're getting more engagement. I know it's going to take a time, but it just have to physically getting closer to the people. And I think that's very important. One other thing I think very successful leader does is that they always go to the stations or the front lines, and they always talk to each other rather than just thinking, scratching your head, what should we do next in the office? I don't think that will work here. Even like a larger corporation here, I think I start to see a lot of CEO, typical Japanese leaders and CEOs start doing that. Some, of course, some mega company may not have physical capability to do that, but I think people will start see it. That makes a lot of difference, because for myself, I always try to take time to go to the front line, which is in Haneda. We also have a hangar in Narita. So I try to spend some time over there. Just like I said again, my motto, I know it's get to this later, my motto of leadership is, I know nothing. Teach me how to do it. And the engagement. That's my always, it's easy for me, because people say, well, you just told me you're coming from a different company. How difficult it is. Yes, it is difficult, but easy for me to say, no, nothing. If you come from like a bottom up, you're a dedicated employee for 40 years and you become a director. And I said, I know nothing. People disrespect you.
Wait a minute.
So,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I turned that around a little bit. And it was for
point.
me to say, I know nothing. So when I go to hangars, I know nothing. I have a little bit of knowledge. I used to fly fighters, so I know a little bit about knowledge in fighter planes, but not the big planes like Airbus 350s and Airbus 330s. And lucky enough, we have Narita hangars. Sometimes we get new aircraft to do the induction, which is to put Delta logos and everything else. And I learn a lot. And then I think I have better engagement with the people. Oh, this guy listened. So I always say, like, I'm always happy to say I know nothing. Sometimes I see a great leader come to Japan, try to lead in the wrong way, say, okay, I know everything. Let's do this, let's do that from tomorrow. Yes, sometimes it may work, but I see most of the people fail to do that because that approach, it's automatically shut down. Engagement with the people.
Well, they need 10 years, not 3 or 4 years, if you're going to do it that way, right? And they're usually they run out of time. And also, when you talk about, going to the gemba, going to the action, if generally speaking, in a Japanese organization, if you say as the pros, and you start talking to your direct reports subordinates directly, they all start to panic. Oh, why is he talking to my subordinates? Why? What are they saying about me?
Right.
What are they talking about?
Right.
And, often in Japan, if you want to talk to the subordinates, you have to tell your direct reports, by the way, part of my management style is I like to engage with people at the gemba, and from time to time, I will engage with people who report to you. I'm not interested in getting them to tell me about what you're doing. I'm doing that to find out what I should be doing and what they're doing. And so please be calm about it. It's not checking up on you. There's nothing about that. And that's what I'll be doing. So you need to set that up as opposed to like a typical foreigner who might have, read In Search of Excellence and, Management by Wandering Around, and I'll do that in Japan, I'll want to start wandering around and talking to people, and suddenly all their direct reports are in panic. So, but if you set it up, it works well. So in your case, what did you do? Did you start management by wandering around, just going directly, or did you talk to your direct reports first and set it up? How did you approach it?
Well, I think it's very important factor is you have to go everything parallel. So anytime I go to Gemba frontline, I will tell the director at the airport and say, I'm going to visit airport today. For me, it's easy because every time I fly out to the headquarters, I have to be at the airport.
You got to be there, yeah.
Right. So I'm going to interact more with the people. So compared to other jobs, maybe my job is easier because I have to be there. And people said, oh, Victor-san's here because I think he's going to headquarters. So first of all, I try to make different distinction as I'm departing to my job to see my bosses in Atlanta. And I clearly make decision. No, I'm here for you today. I'm here for you to talk to you, not about anything else. And I tell their bosses and say, hey, Mr. Say, Tanaka-san, I'm just being there to talk about this and that. And then I'm going to explain a little bit more in strategy. I think it's important first definitely to communicate with the bosses of everybody at the front line. So he, as a boss, comfortable with why Victor-san's here today. Is he going to say, you're right? Is he going to say something about me or not? It's always about relationship and trust with your direct reports first. I think if you don't establish that first, it never works out that you walk around and you always let the direct boss knows you're coming. Because if you miss that piece, you're going to miss whole kind of reporting lines, and that's not going to create good environment. So to your point, every time I visit frontline, I would tell, even like I'm departing out of Haneda to Atlanta or any places in the US, I would tell my direct reports, hey, I'm going there, and just let your people know. Not because I wanted to get the special attention or special business, but at least know that like, oh, my boss didn't tell me Victor-san's coming.
Yeah, that's the other point, isn't it?
That's kind of creates a distrust between boss and themselves. So
maybe my boss is not plugged in.
Yeah.
Maybe my boss is on the way out.
Exactly.
Maybe my boss is not trusted by Victor because he didn't even tell him he's coming here today.
Probably Victor and say Tanaka-san is not doing really well.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I think this is very three-way communication is very important.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm not really, even like a hotel business, even in an area vice president, you have to visit a hotel. Just make sure brand standard is there. So the reason is a little bit different. You just want to make sure each hotel's, the general managers doing their jobs. But sometimes it's important not just to talk to the GM. And that's again, I'm not here to talk to GM today. I'm not here to talk to the owners. I came to see you. I think it's very different to make distinction between the purpose, why you're here. Because they always think, oh, you're here to talk to GM, right? That's why you're stopping by. But I always make distinction. So I always, when I was at the hotel, I go to each hotels, I usually come to the front line. Some bosses like to come from back door. That might be one way to do it, not making scenes. But I always like to come and park my car in front of the hotel and go directly to the front line. So they know I came here to see you, not see the bosses. When you come to see bosses, maybe you came from the back door. But when you see the employee, and that's what I learned from Mr. Marriott. Mr. Marriott, it doesn't matter how famous he is, how busy he is, he tried to visit today I think Marriott have more than 5,000-6,000. I could be wrong because I'm gone almost 5 years ago, but he tried to visit 300 hotels a year, which means
300 a year.
Yeah, he tried.
That's a lot.
But he always go from, not because he likes to get attention, he just want to make sure that he comes to see you, employee. He can see the GM at the GM's meeting somewhere, but he purposely walk into the front door and then say hello to the people. And I think I learned that through, taking care of the people, and then people were taking care of the guests. It's easy to sit and done.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. Also, I guess when I think about that, coming through the front door, he's seeing what the client,
of course,
customer is seeing. He's seeing if everything's right, if everything's the right place and people are working well. With his level of experience,
right,
in 5 seconds, he would know if something wasn't right here.
Exactly.
He'd know immediately just by looking at it.
He's so good at this guy smiling from heart or just smiling because Mr. Marriott is here. I mean, he's really good at. And then I learned through that this guy is happy, not happy by just getting greeted by these people. And I can tell walking to the hotel by the move, these people are welcoming me or not welcoming me, because that goes the whole operation in the hotel. Not welcoming me is fine. It's not fine, but fine. But if that same attitude goes to the customer, that's a big issue. Yeah. So,
and you talked before about top-down hierarchy. Expat bosses coming in, directing everything, basically blowing everything up and going on to the next posting. But what about getting ideas from people? Because often in Western business meetings, we'll get into the room like this meeting room now, and we'll thrash out an idea or come up with a concept or a direction. We'll decide on it in the room, and then away we go. And what will happen in that situation is probably be 3 or 4 very confident, very outspoken people who will dominate that room discussion completely. And there will be probably another 3 or 4 or 5 people who won't say anything at all. But they will be very deep thinkers and they'll have a lot of really good ideas. But those really good ideas never surface because those people are never included.
Exactly.
So what have you found works well to get ideas from people? You talk about going to the Gemba, talking about people and what they're doing, but to bottom up ideas, because often we as dynamic leaders will have a lot of ideas and we'll direct a lot of things, but we can't know everything, and we can't know everything every second of the day.
Right.
So it's good to have a system of getting ideas to come out. Have you found anything useful for getting ideation or getting creative ideas from people?
Yes, I think it's often as a corporate, no offense to HR, but HR always wants to create, which is great. I think it's needed and it's required, but like enclosed type of meetings. If that happens, people will not speak out. I mean, whoever speak out, even like I would ask HR manager, hey, can you get together with the people, usually quiet, usually don't speak out. I don't want anybody in the meeting who speaks all the time. Even those people get together, they don't speak. So my idea is rather than having a meeting, like I said, I visit and then I go to different station. Like when I was in hotel business, I go to kitchen. Kitchen people usually don't come out this meeting. So I go to the kitchen and of course I look through the safetiness and of course the cleanness of the kitchen. But I said, hey, chef, how you doing? What's cooking? I mean, actually, what's cooking? And then they start talk about, if you are approached by saying, hey, chef, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? They will be very scared of, should I say this? Should I say that? Start off from what they're comfortable with. So like, hey, chef, what's cooking? Wow. So you're looking at this, you must have a creative idea. What do you think about this refrigerator? Does it work for you and not work for you? Owner wants this, owner wants that. I mean, just to start off from something this person's comfortable with. I have one person here. He's a great, very intelligent man, but he's very quiet. But I learned that, not because of I wanted to learn everybody's hobby, but I learned that this person likes the motorbike, which I don't. But I have opportunity to speak with the people with Harley Davidson. And I said, oh, you know what? Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with this guy from Harley Davidson. It's amazing motorcycle. Maybe I should invest in the future. And then he started talking about it. So I think if you want to get some message across, I think meeting spaces sometimes works. Most of the time it doesn't. So my reason for being at the front area is I get more feedback, good ideas from people if you have a free discussion rather than meeting space.
And also you're building, we'll talk about trust in a moment, but you're building trust. You've got a sort of an indirect entry to a conversation you want to have as opposed to a direct entry, you know.
Of course.
What's happening about this? What do you think about that? It's a very direct approach as opposed to, hey, chef, this smells great. What's cooking here? How did you come up with that idea? And then, you know, and just think about this fridge over here, you know. Maybe we should get a bigger one. What do you think? Would that give you more capacity, you know, or whatever it might be? Then
of course.
Ease into the conversation.
And the next step, the job for their managers to think about, okay, if we have a bigger refrigerator that chef wants, but what's the return? So that is their boss's job. But getting all this creative idea shouldn't have to come from the bosses. It should come from us.
And just on the subject of trust, you know, again, you're moving out of the military into the hospitality industry, into the airline industry, and you've had, you know, three sojourns in the hospitality industry in two different companies. So there's changes there. But in terms of coming into a new operation and building trust, what have you found works well to do that?
Like I said, when I go to front office, front line at Haneda, I just talk to them and see what's working, what's not working, right? So I would usually find out better from talking to even like a flight attendant, right? We always kind of talk about looking from customers' comment by saying, okay, well, this meal is terrible, or that meal is horrible. Can we change that menu? Or can you change this? Can you do that? Unless you go to the in-flight services, actually you take the flight, you don't know what's wrong with it, right? It could be just how we prepare it. It could be how the cabinet works. So it's got to be a lot of different reasons. So I think it's most importantly, you really have to know the business before you get there. And again, it's been 5 years already. I still don't know a lot of things, maybe a lot of things about the airlines, but it's again, my approach is no, nothing has been working out really well, even from a hotels business and airline business. Yes, the model is different, but I think working with the people is the same. And each individual have different mindset, different passion, different lifestyle. But once you just have to know them, sometimes they get offended if you know them too much. So you have to have some distance.
And that's a factor of is the boss interrogating me to manipulate me to do something he wants, as opposed to the boss has a genuine interest in me. And I think that line is a very critical line, that you have to get rid of the I have an objective here and I'm going to go through a charade of interest to dig out where I can find an alignment between what they're interested in and what we're interested in to get them to fly straight.
Right.
That, we talk about in Japanese kokoro ga mai,
yes.
and so I think that's a great word. And I would translate that as like your sort of true intention. What's your true intention here? Is it to really get to know that person and appreciate them, or is it to manipulate them? So having the right intention, if the intention is there, then I doubt they're going to feel offended or cautious or upset about that type of conversation. But if they have any sense of this is just a fake conversation, then that's
no,
gone.
exactly. I think that's a great point, Greg-san, because you really have to be careful how to approach people. Some people want the distance, some people want to get closer, and you have to get a balance of it. But I think deep in dive, I think we all human, and they want to get closer to your bosses, and they want to know each other. And some people, like in Japanese called nominucation, they like to go out and drink and they talk about it.
Which I haven't been able to do for 3 years.
And of course, sometimes you play golf and you find out more about the golf. And some people maybe just dislike to be social. I think, sorry, I don't want to divert from anything else. One of the difficult part when you get into employee engagement score, it's very difficult and very different from US and Japan, because you never get perfect score of questions saying, are you friends with your co-workers? You're never going to good answer for it. And then headquarters come back and say, Victor, how come this low score? You guys not doing well? No, I think it just, the way of culture here, you don't think your co-worker as more like friends. They are like a partners. And I think they find, I mean, throughout 10, 12, whatever years I was with a foreign company coming here, doing the job, that would be the one of the first challenge I have is that, the question said, are you friends with your team? Are you friends with the coworkers?
And the other really crazy question is, would you recommend this company to your relatives or friends? And Japanese are not going to answer yes to that.
No, yes to
ever,
that. Exactly.
And so they say, Victor, you're doing a bad job in Japan. Look at this. Nobody wants to recommend the company. And they don't like anybody in the company either. What are you doing over there?
Yeah, so going back to your question, that's why I think you really have to have, even though headquarters say, oh, you should be friends with your team and all that, I think to me, here in Japan, it's not right idea of approaching. It's always have to have some relationship with, of course, for my case, employer and employees. But you don't really want to show that to the employees. You just have to be close enough so they're comfortable to talking to you. Those people who are not speaking out in the meetings, but when you go to the front line, where they start approaching to you rather than you approaching to them, that's your success. And to build that, it's going to take a long time. And that's why you really have to constantly, like some people make it like, okay, every quarter you go to, frontline, check. It's not going to work. No. You just have to be there. And like I said, I was very unfortunate because whether or not frontline, I mean, hotel business or the airline business, you have to go to the property, hotel, or you have to go to the airport to check in and fly out. So in that case, I'm a little bit more fortunate that I have more opportunity to interact with people. And good for me is that every time I check in at the counter, I'm no different. I check in just like a regular customer, and every time customer agents are different. So I get opportunity to talk to. They have to talk to me because they have to check me in. So I'm more lucky than other people out there, but I think that personal connection, not to your point of not being, trying to get this guy's hobbies and everything else because of benefit of you, but you have to be close to the people, benefit of them.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's it's hard, but I think if you know how to do it, I think you can do it. It just have to be constant. It have to be constantly visiting, constantly talking. Just once in a while, once upon a time, it doesn't work. So.
What about culture? You talked before about in the hotel industry, they wanted to have a different culture. You come into a new company, you probably have aspirations yourself, what type of culture you want to have here. And you've got veterans, that half of them are 30-year veterans, right? They've got a very established culture amongst themselves, right? So what have you found works well to build a culture in a company?
I think hotel company, to your point, is working for the hotel company, being the LVP was much easier because you build a hotel. Hotel have a brand, and brand have a different culture. So people move around, and they feel the different culture. So for me, say this brand, this is a culture, no tie, relax. You can wear jeans sometime in the hotel, hip kind of hotel, right? So it was easier. Now, to your point, if you're talking about the brand, I think that's the most difficult part of airline business, or the single brand business, is that you have to sell the brand. And you have to keep the principle of the brand, what the Delta is all about. But constantly you have to change the mood and the environment.
How do you do that? Because let's say you've got half of the team they've distilled down their job,
of course,
to a comfort zone where there are no errors, defects, or mistakes. And they're comfortable in that comfort zone, obviously. When you start talking about a different culture or a change in the culture, you're now asking them to come out of that comfort zone and do something new or different, or in their sense, probably risky. So that's not necessarily an easy thing in Japan to ask people to do that, because they're hesitant to do so. So how do you encourage them to change what they're doing and change the culture a little bit? We're talking, we're all going to be wearing, aloha shirts from now on, 7 days a week. That's one thing, but I'm talking about something more substantial in terms of how, again, connected to the brand, connected to the international brand, but also the brand in Japan. What have you found works to get people who are substantially senior, experienced in the business to make those changes?
Well, I think I started to learn that 5 years with the Delta. Every year, our company strategy changed. Now, principle doesn't change. Again, to people, take care of people, of course, and then people would take care of the customer. Principle would not change. But I think day by day, trend by trend, year by year, things changes. So this is a good example. First time I said, you know what? If you needs to focus selling this year is focused to sell Delta Premium Select. Last year was more like Delta One Suite. Obviously, target is different. Delta One Suite will focus more using like a golfers, which is the senior member who use Delta One Suites and pay the value of Delta One Suites to go to US. If our focus is to sell the Delta Premium Select, we call it DPS, which is business class of all time. I think now we call it business class, but Delta One Suite is, technically speaking, it's a first class because it's a box type. So if you're approaching DPS, we can't go to the same people. I say last year we tell these people, oh, you fly Delta One Suite. Oh, this year we're selling this. It's not like, closes, right? So guys, we have to change our mindset to change the target.
New audience.
And I think that internally it's very challenging, but externally, if you have different target, people mindset would change. So this year, or the last year,
this is an example of the Seibu.
Surfer.
Right, this guy's a surfing gold medalist, right?
We this comes from my employees too, by the way. So it's not really, I'm not taking whole credit of this, but I said, you know what? It may not be bad. Olympics coming. This is the first time the surfing going to be official Olympic event.
Yeah, I'm very unhappy about that, by the way, because karate is out.
I'm sorry.
We had karate for the Tokyo Olympics, and now we're in France, and karate is out, and skateboarding and surfing and all these other damn things are in. So I'm unhappy about that with the French, but that's we digress. But anyway, this is the idea, right?
Yeah, this is the idea. And of course,
this came from the team.
this came from the team. I said, well, no, that might be a good idea. That might be a great idea. So we adopted it. And then, yes, it would be a great target. I'll be honest with you. The headquarters said, surfer?
Yeah.
Why surfer? But now this is the second year going with the Kanoa Igarashi. He's now going to be Olympic. He could take it to the Olympic next year in Paris. It's actually happened in Fiji, though. Even it's in France, I think, because the Fiji is a French territory. So it's so
Probably New Caledonia.
New Caledonia, I'm sorry.
It's French
so it's
territory.
going to happen in New Caledonia, so it's not Paris. So he could take it, and also he's a great icon for the fashion, the way he dressed. You know, now a lot of people I see the business class even dressed like that, right? No jacket, just casual. You know, once you get to the destination, you just tuck your shirts in, wear the jacket. Here we go, right? So, and then this year, as I mentioned, sorry about the skateboarding, but we signed a contract with Horigome Yuto, who's a skateboarder champion. We have what we call the Masters of Skateboarding Champion, which we sponsored in Ariake last weekend, as a matter of fact. And our ambassador, global ambassador Yuto, got the ticket to the Olympic. And then our Instagram follower. Now, that's one of the measurements that we use these days. I'm learning it too, but to measure of the B2C, how to measure the B2C exposure. And boom, all of a sudden our Instagram follower went from like small to huge because we learned that these guys are not an icon for surfing, but icon for fashion. And Yuto Horigome, by the way, just signed a contract with a famous French brand company. Start with L, but you know, you can cut it off later. But so he's
we'll
now.
Leave it in, don't worry.
But I mean, this company been known to go after celebrity, right? But now they're even shifting. I think that's the same way. They start to see these
influences, basically.
Influences, new generations. We have to think about the future. Now, sometimes internally, we cannot control the change of culture. While upstairs in our office, people start changing their attitude. Oh, okay, we can do something new. Before, we have to stick with, you know, these things. But now, okay, maybe we could do this, we could do that. Now we are talking about dealing with the basketball. We're talking about, as a matter of fact, tomorrow I got to go see the soccer game in a stadium. We are invited, potentially the opportunity in the future. But you know, we never thought about. We had, as a matter of fact, Delta has one time Delta area in Tokyo Dome. Well, that was a baseball, but that's more traditional. Than
that is,
newer. So I think to change the mindset, you really have to change the roadmap of the company sometimes. Now, again, you can't change the principle. But again, I learned that in hotel business with Marriott, we have a 30 plus brand. So it's easy. I shouldn't say easy, but easy to get different culture, different way of business. People are always thinking new. But when it comes to the single brand company like Delta or any other company, you just have to change people's mindset, not internally, but some way of impact from external effect. So again, you have to be open to the team. You have to get the idea from the team. So,
you got to be flexible in
of course,
appreciating ideas. And sometimes those ideas may not be very good. But if you say to people, sorry, that's a pretty bad idea. Well, you just cancelled their idea creation ticket right there forever. You'll never get another idea out of that person for the rest of their career. That's done.
And sometimes, not this company necessarily, but sometimes companies say, oh no, you know what headquarters is going to say? And that's the end of it.
That's the end of it, self-censoring.
You as a leader, if you believe on your employee's idea, you just have to fight it.
You have to go to bat for them in headquarters, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, the surfer, skateboarder, hey, people now make fun of me at the headquarters. Hey, Victor, you got surfer, skateboarder. Is it now snowboarder? I mean, they might.
Why not?
Why not? So they make fun of me, but hey, it's working out. So yeah, that's a very interesting part.
And what about if someone was going to be sent to Japan to run the organization here, and they don't know Japan, they don't speak Japanese, if you're going to give them some advice, what advice would you give them? I
think, like I said, you may know the business more than anything else, but you have to go into the culture as, I don't know, teach me how. And don't. How
do they do that? Because imagining, I'm going to pick America because that's a big country, 300 million, 320 million people or something, and they have dominant companies all over the world and they're sending people around the world, they're just told you go and they turn up.
Yep.
So how does someone who's raised in America, and you've been living in two cultures, so you've seen both sides, how do they learn the culture when they get here? What's something they should do?
I think, going back, rewinding back to my military time, I got TDY, means, like temporary duty assignment to different base as a U.S. Air Force. And then I learned that if you go to like Korea, if you go to Germany, they always try to adapt the local culture at the base, on base. And then they will serve at the chow hall. They serve you some local food, and there is no choice. You have to eat it. And I think U.S. military in a way does it well, because if you get there in 2 to 3 years, if you don't, some people don't, but most of the people get adjusted because they still have a homegrown food like grits and all kind of stuff the U.S. people would like, but at the same time
I've got no idea what grits is, by the way, being an Aussie. But anyway, I'll go with it. I'll go with it.
I grew up in like a southern part.
Southern part. I was going to say grits sounds like the South to me.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, so I think to me, it's still in my soul where I think people comes. There is a lot of expats. No offense to them. They don't, even lunch, they don't go with people. They just go to Tokyo American Club. I love Tokyo American Club, by the way.
I'm a member too, yeah.
But they just have burgers and every day, not trying to adjust themselves into the culture. So I'm not saying I don't think you have to speak the language. You just have to know the culture and at least try. If people try, they appreciate you. If you go to lunch for ramen rather than burger, oh, this guy's trying. Maybe he's really trying to learn about the culture. Even you messing up a chopstick, maybe at the end of ramen, can I ask fork? That's fine. But I think you have to show the people you're trying. And if you don't like it, tell them you don't like it. Don't eat it if you don't like it. But at least they see. Some people maybe not really comfortable with sashimi. I mean, that's fine. But I think you should try to go with them, find some other favorite in Japanese restaurant. I have few Indian people here in the office. I never tried. Of course, we all try Japanese curry rice. Yep. But the curry in India is, as you know, totally different.
Totally different, yeah.
And I tried, and of course, I told my buddy here upstairs, he's in finance. I said, well, maybe I don't like this, but I like this. So at least he knows I'm trying. I try to understand the culture. It's not really he's trying to get to me, but he tried to learn about the culture. And I think it's all about openness to learn. And again, my principle of management and leadership, anywhere you go to the new company or new country, just to start it off on I know nothing. And but you still have to have a strong direction of we need to get there. But then how are we going to get there? And then that you have to share that with your friends. You bring your headquarters mindset here. Even I was, having a couple more, objectives that I have to establish within first year, second year, third year. I mean, everybody have a mission. But if you drop that on first, that's it. I think you just still have to have that always in your back of your mind, but you first have to learn about the culture.
It's also a time factor too, isn't it?
Of course.
There's a Western assumption that we can do things at speed.
Yeah.
We can turn up somewhere and turn it around quickly.
Yes.
Except this country, I think. Anyone who comes here with that sort of thought is ready for a road crash straight there.
Right.
And so that idea that I'm going to give myself time. I'm going to listen. I'm going to observe. I'm going to try and learn before I do anything.
Sure.
Is rather counterintuitive to how we're built in the West for leadership, because I'm dynamic, I'm a go-getter sort of guy. I make things happen. I crash or crash through. Let me at them, that type of typical approach, right? Which is going to be a disaster here.
It is disaster.
So we're asking people, I think, to switch gears a bit on how they think about time with Japan. And if you switch gears and say, well, I'm not going to expect anything to change for 6 months, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to change anything in 6 months. Well, you've given yourself I think, a big relief from a lot of excess pressure you don't need. And it's something that's probably a wise thing to do, because over that 6 months, you hopefully get to talk to the clients.
Right.
That's a really big, important step.
Of course.
And you get to know the people, you get to know the business, you learn limitations, you understand the strengths, you understand the weaknesses, you start to see your crazy ideas don't work here for very good reasons. And other ideas you see, well, actually, you know what, we could tweak this and make it work in Japan.
Of course.
We haven't done it yet. But that time factor, you know, I think that's one thing. What do you think about language? Should they learn Japanese?
Like I said before, you should try. As a matter of fact, because of a joint venture with Korean Air, I'm taking a Korean lesson every Monday. I never stopped to learn. So,
but you're cheating. You're cheating because the Korean language structure grammatically is identical to Japanese.
Yes.
So all you've got to learn is the vocab and the pronunciation. Like poor guys like us, we learn the whole thing. Right?
Of course. No,
I'm joking, but good on you. Good on you.
Your point is well taken. But I think, like I said, you should try, and you have to show the people you're trying. Even for the single small roles, they appreciate you, and I think you should try. But I'm pretty sure most expat have a limited time to do it. That shouldn't be a priority, though I think you should have that in your mind always. But no, I don't think you shouldn't have to be perfect at learning, but at least I would say communication is important. My style of communication is just go around every now or so, just talking to different people in this office. And people now tells me it's gaguhara. I'm famous to do oyaji gagu, the father's jokes.
Gaguhara?
Gag harassment.
I've never heard that before. That's a new one.
Too many gags.
Too many gags, right?
But I think different people have a different approach, and some people, even leader is not capable or comfortable to dealing with that kind of stuff. But I think you have to create the environment, however you do it, and then, I mean, you don't have to talk oyaji gag in Japanese. If you could just say something in English funny, something charm, sometimes you have to be careful because of nature of here in Japan, sekuhara. But yeah, just one quick charm, one thing, even like 3-4 people a day, I think that would make, because people talk. You know, he came to me, he's funny. So it doesn't have to be in Japanese, but try to kind of at least 1 or 2 people, just you say something totally out of business. Just I'm not doing it because I'm trying to do it, but it's my way of working. I hate staying in the office. Even in the hotel business, as a general manager before a long time ago, I walk around, just say hello to people. Maybe I just learned that as I come through, but I think you just have to kind of charm it. And just, so to your point, no, I don't think you have to learn Japanese, but I think you should kind of talk to the people. Maybe they may not, I'm very fortunate, a lot of people in my office, all the people in our office speaks English, so that's fine. But, even they don't speak the language, try to communicate. That's what you mean. I mean, that is very important. I
think that point on humor is an interesting one. I was involved in the trade business for many years, and I would have Australian business people come up to Japan trying to sell their products and services in Japan. And the Australian concept of business is to have a relaxed, friendly atmosphere. That's thought to be the best way to do the business. So they would be very informal. And as you know, Japan's a very formal country.
Right.
So they're trying to be informal in a formal country.
Yeah.
And what they were missing was the informal part is after 6 o'clock.
Of course.
When you're drinking and eating together. But during the day, I would tell them, don't think that you have to relax the atmosphere.
Right.
Only you feel uncomfortable. None of the Japanese in this business meeting feel uncomfortable at all, because for them, formality is a given.
Of course.
And you're a guest, so they will be formal. After 6, start hammering the drinkies, then good. The other thing too, I think, and I'm going to be a bit politically incorrect here and say that in my experience, English humour from England can be very sardonic, it can be very sarcastic, it can have a lot of irony attached to it, which I don't think translates at all well across language. So I would scrap all of that stuff. And for Americans, a lot of idioms, a tremendous amount of idioms used in communication, especially sporting idioms. Now, I'm an Australian, so I get some of them, but I don't get all of them. So delete all your idioms as well, because
Yeah.
it's just not going to translate either.
Of course.
So there are some things, when we talk about language, that, you don't try irony, sarcasm, or sardonic humor in Japan. Don't worry about formality. It's a natural thing. Look for informality with drinks after work, and also get rid of all those sporting idioms that you're using at home,
You're right.
which maybe Americans understand, but I don't understand a lot of them. So these little things, I found made a difference. And things like translation. I love the one about if you tell Australians, "Oh, it's going to be muzgashi," and then someone helpfully interprets muzgashi as it's going to be difficult. Well, you're talking to a bunch of people from a pioneer society,
Right.
where everything was difficult. So when you tell Australians it's going to be difficult, they're like, "No problem. We'll fix it. We'll work on it. We'll find a way. We'll get over it. We'll go under it. We'll go through it." You have to tell them, no, it's impossible.
Yeah.
You translate muzgashi as impossible.
Impossible.
Ooh.
No, it's
That really, So those sorts of things, you talk about language, I found it's quite interesting how you can make things harder for yourself.
yeah.
Even just, stick with English.
Of course.
So what about your definition of leadership?
I think one, again, engagement and appreciation. I think even like, to your point, yes, sometimes you approach and people doesn't like the jokes and stuff like that. But even like, by the way, your idea was shut down last week, but that was a great idea, and I appreciate that idea. And just anytime you thank the people, sometimes you forget. They try so hard to get things done, and sometimes it fails, and then ended up and losing money or what. But at least you should try to thank them. I think all the leaders understand it. But sometimes in Japanese business, when I talk to, when I used to work for a Japanese hotel company, I talk to bosses and they always say, I know he's a very intelligent guy, but, it didn't work out. I feel sorry for that. Did you tell him that? I said, no, why should I? I mean, you should just kind of tell them, even if it doesn't work, on maybe not on the meeting space, but you could say, you go to like a coffee place or whatever in the office, you know what? Though it was shut down, but I think that was great. I thought it was a great idea. If you think it's a great idea. So,
company's not ready for it, but the idea is good. I like that.
I think that
keep
would
working
kind
on
of,
it.
So I think sometimes the management, so get busy, and then at the meeting, you just get a bunch of ideas. No, it doesn't work. No, it works. It's a great idea. Okay. Meeting adjourned. But
that's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal. I had a boss who was like that. We'd get all the heads of departments together. Okay, he'd be on the whiteboard with a pen. Okay, give me some ideas. That's a stupid idea. We tried that, didn't work. Okay. No good. Like, after about 3 minutes of that, it's silence.
Yeah.
No one wants to put up an idea.
Yeah.
And he never got it. He came from a military background and he drove the business like that too. But I always thought to myself, probably missing a big opportunity here, because there's probably a lot of people in this room who've got some really genius ideas.
Oh, of course.
And they're never going to emerge with this methodology you're using. And I used to try. I mean, I was gutsy enough to put my ideas up and get shot down, and I could deal with that. With some people, it'd crush them.
Yeah.
That'd be the end of them. They just never volunteer again. So, but Victor, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Greg,
it's been a
for
real
this
pleasure
opportunity.
chatting with you.
It's
Thank you,
always nice to talk to you.
sharing
Thank
your
you.
ideas. So please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.